we're going to be doing 3 6-minute rounds of exercising, warm up, and cool down. You want to have space on the ground to move and something comfortable to lay on. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's get on the ground. You're going to walk your feet in real close to your hips and take your arms and just relax them down by your side, palms up to the ceiling. From this position, just take some nice deep breaths. So think about filling into your stomach and up into your rib cage. And then exhaling, bring the ribs down and then bring that belly down to the ground. You are not muted if you mute yourself. Nice big inhales and big exhales. Hey, you're not muted. If you would mute your camera.
Sorry.
That's okay. Let's go one more nice big breath. I'm going to try and feel that rib expansion. Nice. Now walk your legs out nice and wide, about as wide as you can comfortably get them. And then we're going to drop the knees down towards the ground. Inhale back up. And then exhale, drop them over to the other side. You want to feel that stretch on the top of your hip, the outside edge. Inhale and exhale. Try to think about keeping your pelvis fairly close to the ground, so you don't want to allow too much rotation in your hips. One more. And back to neutral. Walk the feet back together. Now we're going to bring the leg up and extend it forwards. And then from here, you're going to twist your foot out and in. Well, you want to more focus on the thigh, but twisting the foot's a good way to think about it. So you want to get rotation through your entire leg. Big exhale. And big inhale while you're doing this. You want to exhale as you bring that leg back up. Inhale as you open and kind of try and find your glutes, your butt muscles as you're opening up. One more. Let that leg relax. And the other one. While you're doing this, try and make sure you're keeping the low back on the ground. So you want to make sure you're not getting arching in that low back as you're extending your leg forwards. Let's go 2 more. Nice. Now we're going to do some bridging. So, nice hip distance with the feet. You want to be about 1 foot from your hips. Relax your shoulders, tighten in the abs, and then you're going to push your hips up. Slowly come down, gently touch your hips to the ground, and then push back up with that big strong exhale. You want to think about your tailbone is kind of moving towards your knees. So you really feel this in your glutes. You feel this in the low back. You want to tighten your abs more. Really try and keep yourself connected to your hips. If you're feeling it in the hamstrings, push your feet forwards more. Really just try and find that strong squeeze with the hips. Go a couple more. Last one. Nice. Nice and controlled down. And we're gonna go ahead and come up. And get into a tabletop position. From here, we're gonna do some nice wrist warm up. So get yourself planted right over your hands and then gentle circles over your wrists. If this is too much weight for you, bring your hands right in front of your knees and do it here. Otherwise, you want to try and be out here. Think about keeping weight in your fingertips and through your palm. And you want to feel that weight transferring around your hands. So really try and be deliberate in feeling your body weight shifting onto the different points of support you have on the ground. Go ahead and change direction when you're circling. You also want to make sure you're trying to push your chest away from the ground a little bit so that you're not flop down like this. And be nice and extended, driving through your hands. Nice. Now we're going to go onto the backs of the hands. So you're going to thumbs out, point out to the side. And you're going to push through your fingertips. And then back up, or down. Push through the fingertips, drive yourself up, and come down. So you want to feel this in the back of your forearm, maybe in the triceps. Do two more. Nice. Now you're going to make a fist and put that on the ground. Then you're going to roll forwards, back to the fist, and then roll down. Try and keep yourself from shifting your upper body. So onto the pinkies, bending the elbow, keeping that weight in the hand, and maintaining a nice calm breathing pattern. And last one. Nice. Okay, so what we're going to do here in this tabletop position, we're going to do some fire hydrants, warm up the glutes a little bit more. So engage your abs real good. You're going to move your knee out to the side. And then back, touch it on the ground, move it out to the side. Your goal here is to think about reaching that knee as far away from you as you can without letting your upper body shift too much. One more. And to the other side. And try and keep a slight curvature in the low back. And last one. Nice. Now from here, we're going to do some gentle downward dog movements. So get onto your toes. Again, find the abs. So you're squeezing your belly button up to your spine. And you're going to push your hips backwards and then up. Try and let your heels sink down here. But your goal is to keep the low back curvature as much as you can and bring your chest towards your knees. And then we're going to come back down, get back to our tabletop, take a little breather. Nice big inhale, exhale. On that next exhale, drive back up into the downward dog. So you want to make sure you're engaging the hands down into the ground, bringing your chest towards your knees. Trying to feel that stretch in the hamstrings and the calves, maybe the upper back, wherever you're feeling tight in here. We'll do one more breath sequence. And then go ahead and come down. Nice. And now we're going to get onto some hero squats. So up onto the toes, keeping your feet pointed nice and vertical. Hands are going to go, I'm going to twist this one. Hands are going to go on your temples with your pinkies to the sky. So you're going to sit down, elbows together, come up, elbows forward, or elbows back. Elbows together, elbows back. So while you're doing this, you want to think about keeping your torso matched to your pelvis. So you can really feel this in your glutes. So when you're here, you want to have a little bit of arch in the low back, abs engaged. You're feeling tension in the glutes. You push your hips forwards to come up. Do two more. Nice. And go ahead and step out of that. So now we're going to get to a spread foot position. So toes are pointing forwards. You want to feel a slight stretch in the groin, but not too severe. Engage with your glutes. Up nice and tall, abs are tight. Interlace your fingers with your thumbs pointing away from your hips. And we're going to bring the arms up. And then back down, nice and controlled. Big exhale. Big inhale. So make sure you're still holding in the glutes. You don't want to have your torso moving while you're doing this. Last one. Nice. Now we're going to take the hips, push the hips backwards so you feel some nice hamstring stretching here. So the goal is to keep a little bit of arch in that low back so you feel really strong pull in the back of your legs. Arms dangle. You're going to bend your knees, bend one knee towards that side. Feel that in the groin. Make sure you're keeping the big toe pushed down and then glide your hips over towards the other side. Again, keep that foot pushed away, pushing that big toe down so you maintain your arches. Just back and forth with this. Big inhale and exhale. Push yourself over. So you want to be feeling hamstring and groin pretty much the whole time while you're doing this. So keeping that low back nice and arched, keeping your head extended and away from the ground. And your hips are pushing backwards. And go ahead and come up and gently walk the feet in. Nice. Now what we're going to do is get into a kind of medium-ish wide stance, and we're going to be doing some pivoting and reaching. So you're going to think about posting one leg, twisting your hips, and reaching toward the other side. So that foot stays there, and then back. Plant the other foot, reach. Inhale, exhale. So while you're doing this, you want to think about squeezing this glute, pushing, and really trying to get that reach. Now I'm going to throw in a little bit of shoulder movement here. So if you want to try this, you can. Palm is up, the other hand is pulling back. Your elbow drives back as far as you can. This will get into the upper body. If you find that to be too complicated, just relax that other arm and reach as far as you can. That's totally fine. But if you want to try this slightly more advanced version to really get into the upper body while you're doing this, you totally can. But really try to make sure you're accessing your glutes while you're twisting. That'll keep your back safe. Make sure you're using the right body parts. And last one. Nice. And get back to that standing position. Now what we're going to do is some bent over cat cows. So thumbs to shoulders, elbows down, abs engaged. You're going to push the hips back and find that slight curvature here in the low back. So from this position, you should have your glutes engaged, and then you're going to bring your arms together, tuck your head down. That midpoint of your back goes up to the ceiling. This is the exhale. Inhale, you're going to bring your chest down and forwards as you open your hands up. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Make sure you're still squeezing the glutes, pushing the hips backwards the whole time. Trying to really move your rib cage. And feeling this in the upper back, in between your shoulder blades. One more. And gently come out of that. Nice. Last thing we're going to do is some big arm crosses. So get into a nice standing position. Knees are relaxed, abs engaged, glutes are engaged. Kind of pushing the hips forward slightly. And we're going to go both arms at the same time. Really trying to reach the arms away from you without shrugging up too much. Nice calm breathing while you're doing this. While you're crossing the arms, you really want to try and feel your upper pecs, squeezing them as you're bringing those arms together. Trying to really feel your shoulder blades moving. And relax, and other direction. So now you're coming up from the bottom. Again, really try and squeeze with your pecs as you're crossing your elbows at that low point. Make sure you're still holding the abs slightly engaged, holding the glutes, and continuing a nice breathing pattern. Trying to really feel the shoulder blades moving as you do this. Do a few more. And there we go. Okay. Your heart rate should be pretty elevated. You should be feeling pretty winged by now. And yeah, we're going to call that good so we can get started with the rounds of exercise. So like I said, these are going to be 6-minute rounds. We're going to be doing 3 exercises going through. Usually it's 2 times. So try and make sure it gets to 2 times at least. So the first round, I will demonstrate. If you want to follow along with me while I demonstrate this, that's totally fine, so you can feel it out before we get started. First thing we're going to be doing is some side lunges. So you're going to start on one side of your space. Abs engaged, glutes engaged. You're going to step out, push your weight backwards. So you kind of bring your torso down. That knee goes right over that foot, and you go down. Drive up, back to your standing position. Hips back and up. I'm going to go from the sides real quick. So keep the low back nice and engaged. So you don't want to have this happen. We round forwards like this, lose that arch there, because then it's going to be much harder to use your glute. So keep the chest up nice and tall. Keep that low back nice and engaged. Going to do 5 to 8. So stepping out 1, both sides. Next up is quadruped hold. So we're going to come down to the ground into that tabletop position up on the toes. From here, you're going to lift your knees off the ground, hold, and then come back down. Hold, and down. Should be about a 3-second hold, and down. Now, if this feels super easy, what you can do instead is you can come up and bring one leg off, and then the other leg off. And just hold that entire time, and just count each pair of leg lifts as 1. Last one up is going to be single arm overhead pressing. Nice standing posture. You're going to bend your wrist down as much as you can, and then push up through your palm. So the goal here is to keep your rib cage from lifting up. So as you push, keep the ribs down. And again, you want to try and feel that upper pec squeezing as you push your arm up. So one arm at a time, keeping that wrist pulled down, knees bent, glutes engaged, trying to drive your hand as though you were trying to push your palm into the ceiling. That's what you want to mentally think about. So the overhead press, 10 to 16, counting each arm movement, end on an even number. So these are just ranges. You want to make sure you're hitting within them. And we're going to get started with round 1, 6 minutes, starting with the side lunges in 3, 2, and let's go. Up nice and tall. Step it back. So notice the arm movement I'm getting in. That helps me counterbalance my weight shifting backwards. You want to make sure you're finding the glute, squeezing it, getting that tension that's allowing you to drive away from it. On the leg you're moving away from, try and make sure you're keeping your arch engaged. So don't let your ankle fall down towards the ground. Once you hit somewhere in that 5 to 8 range, and go ahead and switch sides. So hip back, chest nice and tall. Finding that glute. Nice. Okay, to the quadruped hold. Down on the ground, into that tabletop position, up on the toes, and hold, and down. Try to make sure you're really pushing through your hands. Now remember, if this is easy, you can just do holding, up, up, down. If you still find just the static hold challenging, continue going with that. Try and think about not having your torso shift at all while you're doing this. Keeping the low back slightly arched and feeling this in your abs. One more. And there we go. Back to standing position. Single arm overhead presses. Abs and glutes. Pushing through the palm. So you're trying to leave a handprint on the ceiling. Try and keep your shoulder low. And you're moving your arm. So abs are engaged. Try not to let your rib come up at all. And you want to think about trying not to let your trap get too involved. So when you're here, you want that part to stay down. It helps if you exhale as you push. That gets that strong ab engagement. And there we go. Back to the side lunges. Change which side you started with. Abs engaged, step out. Big inhale, big exhale. Remember, you're trying to keep that low back arch. Finding the glute and driving through the ground. Come back to your standing position. Keeping the arch engaged on your non-moving leg. Okay, and changing sides. Try to keep up a nice, calm breathing pattern. Big inhales and big exhales getting you that oxygen you need to keep moving. There we go. Do the quadruped hold. Down to the ground, hands and feet. And right, and static hold, if that's where you're at. Pushing through the hands, getting the knees off the ground. You find that to be easy, go for the leg lifts. So get both feet, one foot and then the other foot off the ground, and then come down. Try not to shift yourself in your body weight positioning at all while you do this. You want to keep the slight arch in the low back, your weight on your hands, and your abs squeezed real hard. Go one more. And back to the standing position. Single arm overhead press. Bend the knees, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the abs. Pull the wrist down. Handprint on the ceiling. Nice big exhales. As you push, trying to keep your ribs from shifting. Driving that hand up nice and tall. We're going to finish these overhead presses, getting that 10 to 16 range And then we'll take a breather. Keep the ribs down, keep the shoulders down. Find the upper pecs, squeeze them as you bring that arm up. Yeah, last one for me. Woo, there we go. That is round one done. I'm gonna take a minute or so, get my heart rate calm down a bit, and I'll demonstrate the exercise for round two. You can try and take like about a 2-minute break while you're doing this. Really let the heart rate calm back down. You want to make sure during these rest periods that you are still moving. You don't want to sit down or just stand in one place. I like to kind of unwind a little bit. So the areas that I felt got worked, I like to just kind of move oppositionally to them, stretch them out a little bit. Sometimes that involves just like gentle swaying of my legs. But you can kind of just relax and let your body do what it wants to. Oftentimes you'll feel like a slight inclination to move in a certain way. It's best to just kind of let that happen. But while you're in this rest period, really focus on your breathing. Get those big inhales, big exhales, really try and move that air. One of the nice things about swimming is it really instructs your body on how to get air in and out quickly. So probably have a lot of experience being a swimmer in quick volume transitions in the lungs. The problem with that is you don't often do deep breathing. So there are some benefits to taking really slow, long inhales and getting that expansion and holding it, as opposed to quick time opens and closes. It's always good to train the body in a lot of different manners. So we're gonna go ahead, you can continue rest period. I'm gonna demonstrate for round two. So the first thing we're gonna do is some body weight squats. So you wanna get yourself hip distance with your feet nice and squared so that you think about there's a box in between your feet. Now, if you know you have knee problems with this, you can rotate your feet out as needed, but preferably try to keep your feet nice and square. What we're going to be trying today is hands on the back of the head. This is going to make the squat more difficult and restrict your range of motion. So do not force anything. Do not be frustrated if you're finding you can't squat down as low as you normally could, because that is deliberately the point of this. So up nice and tall, abs, glutes engaged, hold with the glutes, and you're going to come down and try to keep your elbows wide and back up. Now, if you're coming down and your elbows come in like this, that means you went past the range that you can maintain this. So the goal is to keep the elbows back and go down nice and low and then up. So if you're coming down and you get to about right here and then you start to round like this, that means that's where you're stopping and you're trying to stretch into whatever you feel tension. So if that's in the hamstrings, try and really get into that stretch while you're doing that. But pinching the shoulder blades, keeping the ribs engaged, getting down, feeling wherever that tension is, keeping the knees wide, so don't let your knees come in, knees wide. Drive back up with that big exhale. These are going to be hard. Don't force anything. The goal is to maintain that postural position. Next up, rocking sit-up. So to the ground. Going to get on to the ground. Kind of have your arms nice and tucked. Knees up. and then come up to this sitting position. You're gonna pause here and then roll back down. So the goal is to kind of get that low back slightly rounded and you're extending your head. So you want to think about the head is pushing away while you're doing this, because that keeps your spine nice and extended. You don't want to have it crunched up like this, because then it's much harder to roll. You can't get that fluid motion. So be as tall as you can, come down, big exhale, rock back up. If this is challenging, painful, what you want to do is just be on the ground, tuck, and just kind of rock like this. And just kind of build into it. So you don't have to go all the way up. You want to just kind of feel it out, squeeze the abs, exhaling, right? And eventually, you will probably feel comfortable enough to get all the way up. If you don't, that's still quite all right. You're still going to get this in the abs, which is the goal of that one, and getting that spine motion in. Next, last one for this round is bent over backwards lifts. So we're going to here, bend the knees, push the hips backwards, find that glute hamstring tension, let the arms relax. Exhale, bring those hands up. So the goal here, pinch the shoulder blades together and kind of use that to lead your hands up as you reach backwards and upwards. It's more important to think about reaching your hands behind you than necessarily about going up. The problem is if you go straight up, you spiral the shoulder down, you round in the upper chest because you're trying to point your hand to the ceiling. So it's more important to go backwards and then try to go up. That keeps your torso nice and straight. As with a lot of the other things, try not to have too much ribcage movement, because when you get a lot of ribcage movement in there, you're losing that abdominal tension. So, gonna get into this round, 6 minutes through. I didn't say numbers. I always forget to say numbers. For the body weight squats, 10 to 16. Rocking sit-ups, 10 to 16. And the bent over backwards lifts, 10 to 16. Nice and easy for this round. Easy numbers. Okay, so we're gonna start in round 2 in 3, 2, and let's go. 6 minutes on the clock. Hands on the back of the head. Feet nice and squared, and sink it down. Nice big exhale. Try and keep your elbows back. Find where your body is feeling that tension. And try and use this to stretch things out. Really work on getting that big volume of air. Going 10 to 16. Keeping the knees nice and wide. Keeping the glute tensioned while you're doing this. Nice, there we go. Rocking sit-ups to the ground. And tuck the knees and rock. Now, like I said, if you don't want to come all the way up, that's totally fine. You can just do this. So reaching the arms forward, coming up to wherever you're comfortable. If you feel like coming all the way up, go for it. Make sure you're pausing at that top position. Make sure you're really getting it. Keeping the abs engaged. Keeping your head up nice and tall. And trying not to hit the ground. So you really want to think about rolling. Nice big exhale as you come up. If you're feeling really comfortable with this, you can push it a little bit so you kind of get a little bit more of a pop. Save the rest of that for the second time through. Down, over, backwards lifts, 10 to 16. Up nice and tall, bend the knees, push the hips back, tighten the abs, and reach the hands backwards and up. Really try and find your shoulder blades, pinching them together. Nice big exhale as you move your hands backwards and reach behind you before you start to go upwards. Should feel this in between your shoulder blades and down the outside edge of your back in your lats. Nice big exhale. Try not to let your body shift while you're doing this. You want to think you're just moving your arms and your shoulder blades. Keep the abs engaged. And there we go, back to the squats, hands on the head. Up nice and tall. Find the glutes, find the abs, sink it down. Nice big exhales. Keep the knees from caving inwards. And try and keep your elbows from going forwards. Really working on that air volume. Keeping yourself up nice and tall. You should be getting some nice burn in your quads and your glutes and probably the upper back. There we go. And the rocking sit-ups. To the ground. And like I said, if you want to try and put a little more velocity into this, you can. But you want to make sure you're still rolling on your spine. If you're feeling really comfortable with this, you can try to rock onto your feet. But that requires a lot of power. Oh. It's all right. We're gonna go ahead and finish this round. So we'll finish these rocking squats and the backwards lifts. A little bit longer than I was anticipating. You do not have to get into that deep squat, right? Totally right to just get to that upright position. And there we go. Ooh, okay, last one, the backwards lifts. We'll bust out that 10 to 16 real quick. Get into that rest period. Push the hips back, find your glutes, let the arms relax, head away from the ground, and nice big exhales. Remember to move your shoulder blades together first. Follow that with your hands. Nice big exhales, keeping that low back arch, pushing your hips backwards. Really working on that air volume. And there we go. Round 2 done. Try and get some water in. We'll do a quick rest period, and then get to round 3, followed by a nice quick cool down. So you want to make sure while you're doing these exercises that you can still comfortably be breathing. The point of these is not to get to the point where you're completely super dead winded. You do not have to be able to talk like I'm doing. You can push yourself a little harder than that if you want to. But you want to make sure that you're not like super dying, gasping for air, because it makes it much harder to focus on your form and control feeling the muscles in the right areas when you're trying to focus on just getting oxygen. And the goal of these is to try and train the musculature that you need for swimming in a safe fashion without injuring yourself. It's a little better to really work on that controlled form, feeling the muscles that are supposed to be working, than it is about pushing yourself super hard so you can't breathe. Probably should lead with that one, but kind of forget sometimes to make sure everybody knows that. Whew. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate round 3. You can continue your rest period. Make sure you're still moving around while you're doing this. Okay. So, first movement for round 3. You're going to be some tricep bridges. So, you're going to start in this nice seated upright position. Don't worry about if your low back is rounded. You're going to think about putting your hands right by your hips. Think about where your heels are and moving your hips to that halfway point. Your fingers should be pointed out to the side. So if you think about, you got like a V there, or a 90-degree angle, whatever. You want that to be pointed forwards. So let your feet relax. Get that low back arch here, and you're pushing your hips up to the ceiling and trying to keep your chest high. So you don't want to be super down with your chest like this. You want to be pushing through your hands, driving everything up to the ceiling. Now, if this is uncomfortable on the shoulders or the wrists, you can just do the shoulder bridges like we did in the beginning. But otherwise, I would like you to try getting that nice push, keeping the knees somewhat wide, really finding your glutes while you do that. Next up, single leg drops. So on the ground, low back's on the ground, you're gonna bring your knees forwards only as much as you can keep your pelvis on the ground. So if you come too much, your pelvis lifts off. You wanna keep it on the ground. Lock in the abs real good. And they're gonna bring one leg down and back up. The goal here is to keep your abs engaged and not move your pelvis or your rib cage. So if you want to, you can take your hands and set them so you can touch your hips and your ribs and feel both of them and try to make sure that they are not shifting while you do this. So you're really having to lock in the core, lock in the glutes. If this is easy, you can have your hands out to the side or moving them upwards. It gets progressively harder the further you get up because you're putting more force through the rib cage. Last one is a plank movement. You're going to do plank ceiling reaches. So you're going to get into a plank position. If you struggle in your plank, it is all right to do a kneeling plank like so. But you want to make sure you're maintaining that straight line, shoulders to knees. So you're not doing this, pushing hips forward. But nice and wide with your plank stance. So if you're on a yoga mat, I like to think outside the edge of the yoga mat. Drive through one hand, reach up to the ceiling, pushing that hand down, twisting, keeping the hips level. So you're not trying to drop and twist, keeping the hips level. Plant that hand, the other one goes up. Nice big strong exhale as you drive up to the ceiling. And that is it for round 3. All of these are 8 to 12. So should go through pretty quickly. So we're gonna do 6 minutes on the clock. Starting with the last round in 3, 2, and let's go. Tricep bridges. Up nice and tall, plant the hands. Shift your hips forward. Push the hips up. Keep that low back arch, drive through your hips. Push the chest up to the ceiling. Really try and find your glutes and your abs. Remember, if this is feeling uncomfortable in the shoulders or chest, you can do shoulder bridges like this, really finding that squeeze. But you want to try and make sure you get, at least try these out, see if they feel okay. Going 8 to 12. There we go. To the ground for the single leg drops. Bring the knees in until you get as far as you can, keeping the pelvis down. Let the leg down. Remember, try to keep your pelvis and your ribs from moving. If you want more difficulty, shift your hands upwards. Exhaling in a pattern, you can either exhale as you drop or as you come up. Just make sure it's consistent. Keeping the abs tight, feeling this in the obliques and deep in the abdominal tissues. And there we go. And plank, ceiling reaches. Again, if you need to be in a kneeling plank to do this, that's totally all right, like this. If you feel like you want to try being in a full foot plank, go for it. Keep your hips nice and steady. Really reaching to the ceiling, pushing through your hand that's still on the ground. Trying not to rotate your hips at all. Sorry, I didn't talk through that one. It's really difficult. Okay, back to the tricep bridge. Get yourself set up, plant the hands, shift the hips. Push the hips up. Try and keep that low back arch as you're coming down. I like to think about, I'm trying to keep my torso attached to my pelvis, and I'm pivoting at my shoulders. Should be getting some nice tricep burn in. I'm feeling this in the glutes, maybe in the abs. And to the single leg drops. Wherever your arm positioning is, Bring the legs as far as you can without losing the pelvis on the ground. And one at a time. Try and pull your ribs down towards your hips. Maintaining that deep abdominal tension. And if you need to, right, thumbs on the rib cage, fingers on the top of your hip crest, and really try and make sure neither of those are shifting. Doing that big exhale either as you drop the legs or as you bring them up. Whichever feels more natural to you. Just make sure you're doing it in a pattern. If you are extending your arms up, you should probably feel some stretching in the pecs and the shoulders. That is to be expected. That's what makes it harder on your abs. And there we go, last one. And 2D planks, 8 to 12. So remember, being on the knees, totally fine. Roll up nice and tall, squeeze the hips down, drive through your heels, and twist. Reaching that hand up to the ceiling. Try to make sure you're squeezing through your glutes, keeping your hips pushed towards the ground. And in that hand, you're planting on the ground. Stop, timer. There we go. We're gonna finish this one. I was hoping I could do that all fancy. Continuing my movement, darn it. And then there we go. Woo! Round 3 done. So, get that nice deep breathing in, walking around, letting yourself move. We'll let that heart rate calm down for a little bit, and then we will cool down. So if we cool down, we'll do 3 to 4 stretches. Really work on the nice deep breathing patterns. Unwind some of the movements that we just did. You should be feeling pretty well worked throughout your whole body. But not to the point of anything being like super dead and toasted. Goal of this is just kind of get that nice movement in, get the muscles working, maybe get some lactic acid buildup. If you push yourself to the point that like a lot of things are dead, you might have gone a little bit too hard. But I mean, kind of got to play that one by ear. If you know yourself and you know you can push that well, it's not bad, but if you're newer to exercising or you're not used to doing body weight movements like this, pushing it too hard can overtax stuff, especially if you're used to being in a pool. And the tendons and ligaments and everything aren't as well adapted to body weight and to gravity because you've been experiencing less gravity. So it's important to just make sure you're giving yourself time to adjust to things. I know it's been a few weeks now if you've been following along with this, so. Whew. Okay, we're gonna start the cool down now. So what we're gonna do, find a wall that's nice and bare. You want about 2 feet of space on it so you can plant your hands a little bit wider than your shoulder width. So you're gonna be arm distance away from the wall to start with, up nice and tall, squeezing with the hips. And you're gonna walk backwards, keeping your hands planted at that shoulder height. And then bring your chest down, trying to think about moving your sternum towards the ground or your clavicle, really somewhere in this upper chest region. You're not trying to drop your head to the ground. You're not trying to drop your belly to the ground. You want to think about somewhere in that upper rib cage, moving towards the ground. Keep that back arch so you feel some nice, strong hamstring stretch. And try not to let your head fall, right? Keep your head back. So what we're going to do in this position, pushing hips backwards, finding that hamstring tension. Take some nice deep breaths. On those exhales, try and pull your ribs down a little bit. See if you can increase that stretch in your shoulders. If you want to, you can do some head movements while you're here, but you do not have to. It's kind of nice. Now what we're going to do is going to take a big inhale. On that exhale, you're going to reach just your right arm down towards the ground and let it hang. Or if you can put it on the ground, you can put it on the ground. You don't want to weight into it too much, so actually don't put it on the ground. Reach over to the side slightly. Make sure you're trying to keep that low back arch. Feeling this in the hamstrings. And feeling this in the lats and the rib cage area, maybe under your armpit. One more big inhale. Exhale, bring that hand back up. Take a big breath. Exhale, reach that left arm down. Again, if you can get to the ground, go sideways a little bit. Or just try and let it relax and hang. You just don't want to be putting weight into the ground. We're trying to stretch this region here. Make sure you're pushing your hips backwards. Last big inhale. Exhale, bring that arm back up. Big inhale. And exhale, push your hips towards the wall. And come out of it. That one's a nice one. Nice full body stretch. Okay. If you have knee issues, you might want to grab a pillow for this because we're going to be doing a lunge on the ground. We're going to be sitting there for a while. So, up nice and tall. Bring that leg forward so you got double 90. 90 here, this leg straight down at a 90-degree bend. You're going to take your opposite hand, put it on your knee, pull into that hand with your knee slightly. Take this hand, you're going to reach up and behind you. So you're getting that twist, pulling that knee away, really feeling this in the down leg. If you need to, you can push your hips forward slightly to increase that stretch. But you don't want to make this to the point that it's incredibly painful. You just want to feel tension in the region, but you're able to still maintain a nice calm breathing pattern. Last big breath. And then exhale. Bring yourself back. Shift your weight back. Switch legs. Up nice and tall. Find that glute tension. Reach that hand over. Pull into it. And twist. And then if you need to, you can shift your weight forward slightly. Find that real strong hip flexor stretch. So you want to be feeling that right here. That front edge of your hip. Make sure you're holding that squeeze in the glute. So you should be able to poke and feel tension. If you can't, you're stretching too hard, and you want to back it off until you can maintain glute tension. Nice calm breathing. Nice big last exhale. Bring that back and come out of this. And last thing we're gonna do is a happy baby stretch. This is from yoga, so you might be familiar with it. If you are familiar with yoga, we're gonna get onto the ground. You're gonna grab the outside edge of your feet with your elbows on the inside of your knees and pull down. The goal here is to try to keep weight on the pelvis. So if you bring up and your pelvis comes off the ground, let your legs go back forwards and find where you can keep weight on the pelvis and then extend up from there. So if you take weight off the pelvis, you're not keeping the back arch, and it's really hard to get the leg stretch that you're trying. So weight on the pelvis is more important than how far you're moving your feet. But you want to think about you're pulling your feet downwards into the ground, getting that stretch in the groin and the hips, maybe the hamstring. Kind of depends on where you tighten this one. It opens up a lot of things. But there's nice calm breathing. But again, weight on the pelvis. If you start to lose the weight on your pelvis, you lose a lot of that benefit of this stretch. Let's do one more breath here. Big exhale. Gently let the legs come back together and come out of it. And that is it for the Dryland training for this week. Hope you all enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun doing the instruction.